Jules, I'm going to make sure that I have you watch samples of the podcast too, so you can hear the sound checks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You were playing because originally with the kind of spit screens, it was too far, and then but I noticed on the last one that I actually could get a little close, and it was
Move
too.
out of frame again. I think it's you see how it's following you, but
I can't see, so
oh,
and if I do when I do this, I can't.
You can see the
you see
lines.
better. Yeah, it was. So that's a good framing. But if you get to look the other way, look to the right and left, just test it, and your body, just a little bit, you get expressions and stuff.
That's it.
I think that's good. There you go.
He's like an Italian.
There you go.
He talks with his
Hey,
I know
look
sometimes
at
when he
this.
moves back, yeah. I think that's fine. Great, you got it.
Ben, what does this mean in Italian?
This is puff and cool and strong to the
Yeah, it
moon.
means you
That's really
get the
bad.
fuck out of here.
All right.
Can you hand me my tea, please, Jules, right in front of you?
This one?
My left side is much better than my right.
That's
So what I've been trying to do, Cap, is when one of you tries to take a drink, like when you and Alden did, I'll try to go to that other person. Do you still want me to do that?
Yeah, you know what? Podcast people drink water.
Okay.
It's not a TV production.
I think it's fine.
In fact, yesterday I was watching and Theo Vaughn was on Bobby Lee, and Bobby Lee was just acting weird, and then finally Theo Vaughn goes, "Can I get a Diet Coke or something? I'm dying over here."
Ben, do you have the link for the live so I can access this from my phone?
Is this going to be streamed live?
No.
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 We can access, I can access now to see what's happening. That way I can test the sound. But
No, but
No,
this is
no
where I've
live
learned
yet.
to not talk shit at this part right now, because Ben's like, "Oh, I had you live, and I just got you talking about
because it's recording right now, right?
people you shouldn't be talking about."
Or do you want me to ask Mike?
Traveling on Ice Follies with Ice Follies, basically until like I was born, and then my dad went into concessions, but we were still on the road, and so we were on the road until I was in like third grade. I was homeschooled, traveled in a different state every week, so all 50 states by the time I was, I don't know, 10.
You were on the so when you told me that you know what it's like to live in a trailer, I was like, "What?" But basically, you were on the road.
Yeah, we had a fifth wheel trailer that my dad would or my mom would pull with our truck, and then my dad also would sometimes drive like the big rigs for the show. So we'd be parked in the building, like the arena parking lot, basically, backstage.
And you'd roll in for how many days? Like you roll into a town, and how many shows would it be? Just a couple or a weekend, or
I don't even
don't remember?
Usually we would be in the city, I think, for maybe like 5 days a week.
Yeah, because you told me you stayed in Las Vegas for a little while, right? So what was?
That was different. That was
Okay.
after we got off the road, third grade, we moved to like permanently to California. And then, but my dad was asked to do concessions for a show that was opening up at the Aladdin, the old Aladdin Hotel, which is now Planet Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the theater for the Aladdin Hotel is like the only thing that still stands in that whole hotel in the Planet Hollywood, because they demolished everything with the Aladdin. But the theater, which is the theater where my dad did concessions for the show that was there, is still standing. So he did concessions for a show there one summer. So we lived in the Aladdin Hotel, poolside room. It was pretty awesome.
Okay, so that wasn't so much the ice skating. That was when you started getting into working
That
with
was
buildings.
concessions, yeah.
Okay, all right, and the theater's still there.
Mhm.
Proud of me.
Theater, yes, not theater.
Hey, I'm pretty sure I said theater.
For those of you
felt weird.
that are around Tony and you realize that sometimes he pronounces things weird, go ahead and call him out on it.
I just remember hearing theater growing
So
up.
I'm not
that's
the only
all.
one.
So is Seattle Seattle? I'm not sure how that,
No,
because
but that's
you're really fun when you go back and forth and you hit me with this. I'm just getting an education all
That's
the
the
time.
thing about the English language is like there's
So confusing.
It is confusing, but you just adapt.
So all right, so we'll stick with the ice folly. So your experience then, there'd be a show, and then they would have you sit in a chair and just sit there. You're running all over the place, right? So what were you doing?
At that time, then my dad was doing concessions then for Sesame Street Live, But yeah, like all of the shows and Muppet Babies when I was really little too. When like the show would be going on or we'd be in the building, I would basically, I had a little like all access pass and I would just, I don't know how my parents like, they just let me roam free. I was like, I learned to ride my bike inside of like the corridors inside the arenas, and I was always backstage. I was on stage. I had my parents like tried to give me some sense of normalcy, so I wanted to do gymnastics. I wanted to do dance, so they would hire like some of the dancers in the show to give me lessons. So I would do like dance class, just one on one with some of the dancers, like on stage. Yeah.
And was that more of just something that was part of your upbringing, or was it influencing you at that time? Was there anything about that was like you wanted to do that, or just no, it's part of the environment I'm growing up in,
Like dancing, you mean?
or just the entertainment, the
I don't know. I've always liked dance. I don't know if that's why. I still like dance. I mean, I took dance all through high school still too.
so you were pretty comfortable roaming backstage by yourself at a pretty young age.
Yeah, except I had like horrible social anxiety talking to like the usher. So when we would go, everybody with the show knew who I was, and I mean, it was fine. It was normal that they would see me coming and going backstage behind the curtain. But like the ushers for the arenas, like they were from that city, so they didn't know who I was. So because it was a show that drew a lot of kids, they would just see this kid running back and forth backstage and think that I was some kid that got lost. And so I didn't want to stop and talk to them and explain. So I would just run away from them and sprint. And so I would literally run through the seats like before the shows, and then some out of shape like usher person would be trailing 30 feet behind me trying to catch up to me until finally somebody that knew me from the show would be like, yeah, she's with the show, she's good.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you really didn't settle into, like you said, then your family moved to California, and then is that when you experienced kind of school,
That was horrible.
Because so now you're in a classroom, and this is what, third grade?
Third, yeah.
Yeah. And you come home from school and going, what did you do to me? I can't run around.
It was
Like, what
horrible. I think I'm still grieving. Like it's weird. It's like a grieving process of my life before and the freedom I had to explore and to be in new places and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden being somewhat stationary. I mean, still, my family travels a lot, but anybody who knows me and knows how much I travel, it's a big reason why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Makes
I think
sense.
it's getting back to kind of my roots and my core of my life before. But as soon as I had to go to school, it was like,
Well, you're kind of a free bird, and then you got tethered, which is some normalcy, right? But you have to get out and fly. So, like you said, anybody that does know you, or anyone that follows your social media, I think people look as much to seeing where your next trip is and what parts of the world you're seeing. So pretty interesting. So we'll jump forward. Jets were in existence for quite a few years, and you finished playing for them and went off and played college ball, right? And then finished playing college ball. And then I love to share this with you because it's like when we're in class and we're giving opinions, or sharing things, but it's like, look, this is not just an opinion from experience with you. You're educated. So, where'd you finish up schooling? And I want to talk a little bit about quickly talk about how that influenced you as well, especially with your master's program and your mentor. So,
well, I finished up school in grad school at Utah State.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough to be under the mentorship of Dr. Richard Gordon, who's the U.S. Ski and snowboard team sports psychologist. So he was my committee chair for my thesis. It's actually my original. They assign you when you get into grad school. They assign you a committee chair and a committee that you're going to have to defend your thesis. So it's like your committee chair is the person basically that you go to for any questions or anything that you need. And I was actually assigned a different committee chair, but I had a sports psychology class with Dr. Gordon. And it was maybe like the first week or second week that he called me into his office and asked me if I felt comfortable with him putting in to have my committee chair switch, that he wanted to be my committee chair. There was just a connection and like something that he had seen in me. He thought that we were going to work really well together. And so...
Did you know of him before?
I didn't know who he was until I got my class schedule. So it was before I started school, but I got my class schedule and I had Googled him. And so I realized pretty quickly. Before I even started class, I realized how big of a deal he was in the sports psychology realm. But so I was looking forward to taking classes with him. And then when he pulled me aside and said, "Listen, I really want to mentor you and kind of be your guide through this process," it was humbling, but really exciting also because we got along really, really well. And I would go into his office for lots of different things. I spent a lot of time with him, just in general, having conversations. He got me through my time I was coaching at Utah State as well. And, I was going through some personal stuff, some difficulties, and he really helped guide me through everything I was going through at that time.
So ended up influencing a lot more than just your major, right?
Yeah.
In your master's. So you talk very highly of him, and I know that when you do talk about him and you get a chance to catch up with him, it's pretty special for you. So you still head back to Utah State every now and then,
Yes, I do.
right? Your
Go
alma
Aggies.
mater. Yeah, that's it. You were just there a couple weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, it was freezing cold and snowing, but that's why I visit and I don't live there anymore.
Understandable. So finish with your master's. Did you know what you want to do after that? It just kind of, you kind of live life, and it's different because part of the conversation I want to have is, some people do well in what we call boxes, right? So following a certain path and structure, and then some people it's very kind of open-ended and kind of design their life as it goes. So from what I know about you, it's been interesting, and it is interesting to see the different things that you've done. So right out of college, where'd you head? What'd you do?
Well, I was already coaching. I already knew that I wanted to coach. When I graduated undergrad and I started coaching at Biola, and that was my first coaching job. I didn't apply for it or anything like that. It was kind of like thrown out to me, and I'm like, I guess I'll try it. I didn't really think I would like coaching. My mom was actually the one who was like, "You really gotta get into coaching. Go coach the Jets with your dad." And then Biola happened, and I really fell in love with coaching. So by the time I got to Utah State, I realized that I wanted to remain in coaching in some capacity. And that's really why I went into the grad program that I went into. So when I graduated from there, I realized I knew I wanted to keep coaching. I don't know. I feel like I wasn't sure exactly. I think what I needed to figure out is how can I make a living doing something that I really love doing. So trying to figure that out.
And that's not a bad recipe for a certain population. Find something you love to do, find a way to get paid for it. So when you have life purpose, I think a lot of people, I've known a lot of coaches that, and I felt this way with my original circumstances, as long as my bills are paid and I'm doing something I love, I'm not in a box, I'm good with this. And I would kind of accepted that. So you coached with your dad for a few years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
And that was good. You enjoyed that, right? What'd you like or appreciate about the environment that he or you guys created with the Jets?
It was a good, positive environment. I think an environment where a lot of the girls that came to the team, they found their love again for the sport. So it was very structured around respect for the game and, playing the game a certain way. I really loved coaching. It was just really good families and good girls. We always had a lot of people that was, word of mouth for the most part. Most of the girls that we always brought on the team were people that, there was girls on the team that said, this family would be a good fit for you guys. And so it was just a lot of good people, a lot of good families in general, a good environment to be around.
Being a competitor against you guys, is the one thing I mentioned this to you, it was always consistent. Your dad was always the same, no real highs, no real lows. And in this crazy softball world, that's, again, I think it's underappreciated because a lot of notoriety comes from other things a lot of times, but I think that was a pretty cool thing to kind of witness as well. And you ended up taking that program over?
Yeah. For the most part, not really something I wanted, but the way that life kind of happened and my dad with work and, things that had gone on with my family at the time, it just kind of happened that my dad just didn't have a whole lot of time anymore. One of the other coaches that was coaching with us wasn't with us anymore, and so I just kind of wasn't ready to let it go. So it was basically take control of the ship or it's going down.
Right,
So
right.
I did.
Understandable. Was anyone in your family surprised or not surprised that you attached to coaching? Kind of makes sense, kind of the way, because what kind of player were you? Let me back up a sec. So calm, patient player, a little feisty, a little competitive. What?
Very feisty. But
Did that kind of match and kind of there's certain appetite as a coach too? You still get to compete and still get to or
yeah, very feisty, which I'm still very, very competitive, but I can't think that I've ever had any trouble maintaining my composure or anything like that. I've never had any outbursts. I never did as feisty as I was. I feel like I just always maintained respect for the game. I still do. I respect this game so much. And so as competitive or fiery and feisty as I've ever been as a coach or a player, that like persona of, playing the game the right type of way has always been in me. So I think that just kind of,
it was never really external, it was an internal type
Yeah,
thing.
definitely.
So would you say you were kind of naturally consistent like that, or did you have your moments growing up? Because you seem to have a certain natural consistency, but I also know about your personal philosophies on life and things like that. So kind of fit hand in hand, or, in my case, the learned behavior became kind of
yeah,
what
I
I
think
was
it's,
known for.
I don't know, natural. And my dad's very even keeled.
It's hard for me to picture you with outbursts and tantrums and things like that. And so,
Yeah, I think I model after my dad in that way for sure.
yeah, pretty fortunate. So we're going to fast forward and still stay in your personal life a little bit. So you've got this amazing little gift named GLE that, has been part. So we've been working here together for a few years. You and I have been working together going on probably 8 or 9 years as far as coaching and working together. But we've been in here inside the range and building this together. And little G has been part of this in and out, from her little tent in the back to just drawing pictures and being part of the environment. And you having a pretty good handle on knowing what you would like for her to do, but also your daughter's not surprisingly as strong-willed as you are. And so recently, within the last few weeks, she took a liking at another level to softball. I think she's always appreciated this environment. And so she let you know she wanted to sign up for softball.
For softball.
What
Yeah.
was that like, Mom?
Best moment ever. So exciting. I got right on line and I'm like, I signed her up, and it was like perfect timing because it was in January and they were having open signups for Huntington Beach Girls Softball League.
And I think Auntie Robin Ferris had her backpack and bat and everything probably delivered the next day. And so so it happened, seems like it happened really fast, right? Like I think I've mentioned the switch kind of flipped with her. She had a workout with some of our team, and which I understand now might be illegal, but but she just like clicked into it. And so now she's had a couple of weeks of games. She's had her first couple of games. And so how's she doing there? Knowing that you're humble, but go ahead. How's she doing?
I would humbly say I think she's doing pretty well, especially for being her first year. Like she's up, I think she's kind of up there with like the other stronger players that have been playing for a year or two. And she's humbly, I think,
And she just turned
very
7.
strong for being her very first year.
She's got a great birthday.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know how that works.
It's the whole December 31st. So if you're born on the 30th, it's a bad birthday, but January 1st, it's a good birthday. So basically she's, older than biologically older than a lot of players.
She's the oldest on her team. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other girl that's like a week
Yeah.
younger than her. And then she is like, I mean, I don't know anything about kids really, like little kids, and I admit that. I mean,
Right.
But so I don't know how tall is like normal for her age really, especially because she goes to a Montessori school. So she's in the split age class. So I don't even know what kids in her class are older than her, younger than her, what, I don't know. But she seems to be like towering over 80% of the other kids in her age division. So
Now, so for any parents or coaches that remember their players' first days of softball, how is that relatable to you? You feel like you feel like, okay, I've got to be, the right persona, pretty good for you. Like, what can you relate to? Nervous for your daughter, worried, excited? What's it like sitting there and watching her go?
I'm not nervous for her performance or anything like that. I think my main focus is really wanting to make sure this is a good experience for her because I want her to have longevity in the sport. Like, I want her to continue. I really want her to love softball. I'm never going to force it on her, but I want her to want to keep playing. So it's kind of like when you're hosting a party and you're like paranoid to make sure everybody's having a good time because you want them to come back. You want them to have a good time. That's how I feel with Gia playing. Is like I want her to make sure that this is a good experience for her because I want her to keep on. And so I think that's my only thing. Like last night, she really wanted to play first base. But then every time that she would go out after offense when they go on defense and the coach would ask where they wanted to play, she just kind of like didn't really speak up. And then so she went out to second base, again. She was kind of like sulking a little bit.
She told you this afterwards, or you knew during the game?
She had told me before that she wanted to play first base. She was bored at second. She never gets any balls at second base. And so I did go. I was sitting next to the dugout.
Were you a good mom?
I looked at her
or do you go
and
up there
I
and
said,
say, Gia, go tell your coach?
I said, Gia, speak up. If you want to play first, you have to speak up.
Holly.
Well, it's not like I went to the coach and said, hey, put my kid at
you
first
broke
base.
the rule. Now, she's 7, but you went to the dugout. You know what I would tell her?
My chair was next to the dugout.
Okay. I would tell our coaches, our parents, listen, unless your daughter needs medication or an inhaler, an EpiPen, and there's some kind of dire need, and look, I'm getting a little look from you right now.
But this is my thinking is, look, if she stays in a position where she doesn't get any balls and she's bored, she's after the game, she's like, this is boring. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want that. So I'm like, if I got to give her a nudge, like I said, I'm not speaking for her, but I'm like, if you want something, you have to speak up. And she did, and she played first base, and she got the very first ball. It was a ground ball, and it went to her, and she did it. She got it, and then she raced the runner to first and tied the back. So,
I think you showed exactly what I wanted people to see right there. that little competitiveness, and well, okay, because I would describe her as, for lack of a better term, she's had a free range upbringing. You know, so there's a couple of challenges in however well or not well I know her. Number one is. She likes to do well at everything, and this is a really tough game when you like things to be successful, right? Most of the time, because we have to teach most of our kids it's a different type of consistent success. It's not an outcome thing. And then also just the rules of you got to do this, you got to do that. And it's a new arena. It's not like she doesn't understand that. She goes to school. But that was going to be interesting to see how she was going to deal with all that. But so far, so good, right? She's excited after the games. And
yeah.
And then all this fun stuff of you did her hair before school yesterday for the game, and she had her triple braids. And, you know, I just feel like it's not even so much that obviously I'm a guy and that's what I'm into. I do appreciate that, but it's the thing that people attach to, especially at the beginning of the years. And as we talk about the population that we work with, especially with the high school age girls, I think it's important to remember where things come from, right, and where it starts from. Because one thing that I will tell you, and I give you a lot of credit for, is that you haven't at all put the way she plays the game, meaning the techniques and stuff, you haven't put that in front of her at all. And I love that because I feel, could be wrong, there's going to be a few years where we're going to appreciate the lack of the, that it wasn't physical polish first, that kind of comes in. Because she's learning by emulating the girls in here, right?
Yeah. And again, that all kind of, for me, plays into also wanting her to have longevity in the sport, not wanting her to get burnt out. I know her, and if I push too hard at anything, she's not going to like it. So I'm really strategic, I feel like, in my approach with her.
You better be.
And a big part of that is, you know, just making sure that she likes to learn from, especially from the girls. She likes that. That's
her preferred method of learning.
Plus, look at who the girls are. It's not like she's learning from some kids that don't know what they're doing. I mean, she's learning from future All-Americans. She's taking reps with like...
And she doesn't know it, kind of like if you would have been an ice skater,
commits.
you know, who you would have learned from, the professionals. And so she doesn't know that part of it. But the other thing I think that, and again, it's just something for parents to think about is, you know, she asked you to work with her. No, she asked you to pitch to her. And that's a good sign because we know way too much about when all of a sudden that's not an enjoyable experience, and that can happen at any age. So it's pretty exciting. So yesterday had her second game, and I think I did see a clip online where she nailed the pitcher who was the coach.
Mm-hmm. And the shins, yes.
So how'd she do yesterday?
She did good. She her first at bat, she batted her first game she batted the lead off. yesterday she batted fifth, so she had to wait a little while, for her at bat. And she like ran in the dugout, put her helmet on. She was all ready, like before 4 batters ahead of her had to go. Her first at bat, she hit the second pitch to left field, and then I don't remember. It was her third at bat, I think, that she drilled the coach in the shins. And then she stopped for a second, like she was about to ask if he was okay, and then she just ran.
Yeah, she's good. One of our players was asking this week or commenting on when you showed the clip of her hitting the punching bag, and she was like, that was kind of like a pinata. She was knocking a wall down. It was, but she was just going. She's strong and she's fast. So, and the reason I bring up Gia so much for anyone that might be new to listening to us is Gia's a big part of like your social media. Most of the people that involve themselves with a range know who Gia is. I'd say a little bit. I think sometimes people can not live through your experiences with her, but it's a different experience, right? So in one sense, they're seeing life through your lenses and the way that you do. So I just want to do about 5 more minutes of just talking about the way that you educate her through travels. So I admire this a lot, and we talked a little bit about this is related to how you grew up, and you really don't work well tethered. And so part of her life education has been this kid has more frequent flyer miles than probably any kid in her age or up in that top tier. But just quickly tell us your perspective on that in that you see, okay, she's got her academic education, that you have her in a great school, but it's really important for you to take Gia out and see the world. So
Yeah, she goes to a really, really good school, and LaPorte Montessori is to be honest, I'm not even completely sure of how all the ins and outs of Montessori schools. I know her school in particular, they celebrate culture and diversity, and it's very like children-led learning, I think is kind of the way that they put it. So they have different activities, and each kid, it's not like there's a teacher at the front with a lesson plan. Each kid goes and picks their activity for the hour, and then they go back to the desk and they work on that activity. And so it's cultivating independence and life skills as well. And then for me, I feel like to supplement, also like double down on that, the life skills and perspective, cultural diversity, all the things that she's learning in her school too, and to go out and show her the world and the things that she's learning about in class. Like they celebrate all these different cultural holidays and stuff like that. So to take her to those places in the world too, for her to actually see it and see the things that she's learning about in school, I think is something really cool. And I try to let her pick, for the most part, like pick some of the places that she wants to go. She picked Paris. That was her, like one of her bucket list ones. So we went to Paris for 10 days. She wanted to see Billie Eilish in Europe in concert. So we went and saw her in Budapest. So where and when we can, like I try to let her pick some of the places.
About how many countries has this kid been to?
Oh gosh,
roughly
I don't even know.
over 10.
Yeah, probably maybe 15.
And before somebody thinks that you have this great lavish lifestyle and there's oodles and oodles of money, no, you're actually very frugal. You're very, very budgeted. Like so.
Yeah.
So, and I guess my point there for someone that I feel like even hearing responses from people in class and parents in class, oh man, that would be so cool. But it is doable if that's something that you want to do. So just like anything else, you have to budget. It's not always as expensive as you think. So how do you get creative with managing finances and still being able to satisfy that thirst that you have or appetite of getting out and knowing it does take money to do that?
Luckily, a lot of these places I've already been to. I played softball professionally in Europe. So, I mean, anybody who's been to Europe knows how easy it is once you're there to like really get around and see a lot of places. So, and trains are cheap and accessible. So I've seen a lot of Europe through softball. And when you're comfortable with a place, for me, I've already been, it makes the trip easier to be frugal with it or economically smart, because I know, I can book things myself. I know the safer areas. I can usually tell what places are going to be like, okay, that's a really good price for a hotel that's clean and like in a good area and that kind of stuff. I don't have to really use any outside like resources.
Which is important because that can affect your experience.
Mhm.
I know that in my experience with you, something that you're constantly showing me, like you look to TripAdvisor for certain things, right? And so
reviews,
know,
reviews.
and you like that because pretty accurate, like
the
your
reviews.
go-to.
Yeah, I like if it's a place I'm not. Well, I always do TripAdvisor for hotels. Always, as far as like the reviews, I always read the reviews. You got to take things with a grain of salt. But if you know, especially cleanliness, like people are. That's pretty like. I mean, everybody, I guess, to some extent, has their own definition of
Right.
cleanliness. But if you have a hotel that like dozens of people are telling you is dirty,
Right.
just don't go there. Probably.
Right. So go to the reviews, go to the personal experiences, right? And then you budget everything out, and you do Airbnbs and
A
sometimes
lot
hotels.
of Airbnbs. Yeah, when we're staying, and that's a good way to save money too, because we have a kitchen, and then so if we're staying, like we were 2 weeks in Venice, Italy, we got an Airbnb, and we were there for Thanksgiving. It was just Gia and I. We went the very first day. We stocked up on groceries. We cooked a good portion of our meals. You know, we cooked our little Thanksgiving dinner, whatever. But we saved a lot of money. I mean, I think people don't realize how much money that you spend on food when you're on trips. And I know that's an enjoyable part, especially in Italy or places like that for people. But to not have to eat out every single meal definitely is a
Right.
big place that we save money when we travel.
We even talk about in softball, right? So if you can, you pay a few extra dollars for a hotel that includes breakfast, and you've got your family of four on the road. That's saving you having to go out to Denny's in the morning. So there's a lot of little things like that. I think softball people, for the most part, they get pretty good because it's constant. It's constant finances. Constantly financially supporting your daughter, your teams, different things like that. So it's awesome. I feel lucky in the perspective I have in being kind of close to kind of watching her grow up and seeing what you're doing with her. I admire a lot of it. I would say the last thing is that I think it's been an amazing experience for me to watch how you communicate with her. I have to this day in my life never seen anyone talk and communicate with their child the way you do. Part of that I feel is who you are. A big part of that is what you know about psychology and communication. And then kind of the fun X factor, I always say fun, is that no matter what and how good it's sliced up, you've got this daughter that's a little pistol and she's got her own little fire. And I tell you that I want great outcomes for the whole thing, but I have this, I call it kind of a front row seat or maybe a second row seat. And I see how she looks at you. I see how she talks, and I can already see this thing kind of going because you're both really smart. And so we'll just say we'll stay tuned in kind of how Gia challenges her mom for just the things that she wants, because she's a great kid, but she knows what she wants. She's definitely not a follower in that per se, so it's kind of cool. Even here in the transition from being in the house of what we're doing here and having free roamed everything to now she's got herself in arranged classes.
Yeah.
So came in, and did that surprise you at all or did you know her when she applies herself as a student? Because she decided to come into the class and she started taking notes, and I think there isn't a question that I ask where she doesn't raise her hand to want to answer it. So did that surprise you at all, or that's kind of who she is?
It surprised me in the capacity that like she's been coming here for so long and has never wanted to do that. So that surprised me that all of a sudden it was like, oh, you want to come, not just to one, like every class. She wants to participate in pretty much every class.
She did 3 in the first week.
Yeah, that surprised me. She does really like school, and she doesn't have homework at her school yet at this age, but she'll say to me like, can you give me homework? Can you give me like a quiz? I got to go do my, when we were at Utah State a couple weeks ago, she bought a Utah State notebook in the student store. And then she said, I got to do my college practice. I'm like, what? But she likes like work like that. So the classroom setting really kind of speaks to her in that way, I think.
Well, so, all of us are influenced by where we come from, what we experience and things. So this kid has experienced so many things. And it seems, again, from the viewer perspective, is that she knows what college life is like. And at some point she's going to say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. Because I can see her seeing that life and going, this is part of like what I want for myself. So it's going to be pretty exciting. So we'll fast forward a few years. you and I had been coaching our team together for a couple of years, and you had a life circumstance that kind of changed. It is not uncommon for people, and it was something that I related to. And so when we first started talking about the transition of kind of your, needing to provide for her, right? And so you were at that time giving lessons, and you were coaching in high school, giving lessons after practice and games, and doing kind of the traditional one-on-one lessons. And again, I was very empathetic towards your situation because I remember how scared I was when I mirrored the same situation. So I talked to you and I told you I had an idea. And you said, I think we can make this work for you. And so this range thing that we've talked about, a lot of things kind of fed into it. But you and I started coming over here to the facility and we started building this thing from the ground up. And it was kind of scary for you at first. Do you remember that?
Yeah, when I was the thought of transitioning from one-on-one lessons to groups, I think it was more what scared me was that I had to tell my one-on-one lessons and ask them to take that leap with me, and that scared me. I thought I was going to disappoint people or be letting people down.
Yeah, sure.
Although, as much as I really enjoyed all of my lessons, as girls, I enjoyed working with the girls. I did not enjoy really the one-on-one, day after day, going just boom, 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 boom.
That wasn't the ideal routine for you.
No,
Right.
That's just not.
And it was traditionally what you stepped into.
Yeah.
Did you
and
kind
it
of
was
know
what
though
was
that
needed
this
at the time.
isn't my box? Did you know or?
Yeah, I was doing
Yeah.
it out of necessity.
Yeah.
I had to make money, but it wasn't really. I wasn't enjoying it, and I don't mean I wasn't enjoying the girls. I
Right,
was, but just
There was just something about it that it wasn't it.
yeah, not for me. I seriously respect any coach that can go out there and do 10 hours straight of lessons and tell me that they enjoy it.
Doug Myers, T-Bone,
Yeah,
these guys
That's good for you. Not my thing at all.
I asked, Coach Doug, who is an amazing person and a legend in the softball world. And I don't know, he's so many different things. He's so funny. He drives out to Bullhead for the high school tournament. He
Yeah.
doesn't even coach anymore in high school. I said, when's the first time you went out to Bullhead? He goes, 1996. And I said, and you still go out there? He goes, yep. And I said, how long does it take you, Dougie, to get there? And he goes, sometimes 6 hours. He gets lost a little bit. So Bullhead's in Arizona. I said, did you ever end up accidentally in Las Vegas? He goes, yeah, I did that too. So but these are those guys, they're cut from that cloth.
Mhm.
He was in here with Jesse Sims T-Bone was in here with Jesse Sims last night. Another great man. Has been coaching for so long. And it's kind of crazy to think back when we kind of started close to the same time period.
Love Jess.
But these guys they that's the grind, right? Not for me. And again, goes in, I mentioned earlier, box, right? Something that's there before you step into it that gives you comfort, whatever it is, right? Or at least leave one end of the box open. So I know that you knew that we were doing things uniquely and a little bit differently. So hopefully a little bit of trust, because we came over here and we started talking about the range and what could we deliver. So again, I think the advice or the shared experience to anyone that might be listening is, yes, we need to provide. Yes, we need money. Yes, when you win, you get more that comes with it. Outcomes, right? And they're actually a lot of times the deciding factor in our experience, but it's not the main focus.
Right.
And so when we started talking about the range, why the range? Why pitchers? Why did we take the approach that we did with pitching? Because we have a unique approach. We don't just put them in the bullpen and let them throw.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I was a pitcher utility. I don't put myself just a pitcher.
You're a ball player that can pitch, right?
Pitcher utility, I just moved the camera. Okay.
You're good.
Pitcher utility. But being that I was a pitching coach, it made sense to go into that area. However, I do think that we're really kind of navigating some uncharted territory. These kinds of classes and group setting type stuff traditionally hasn't really been accessible to pitchers. You've got group fielding classes, group hitting classes, group catching classes. Group pitching classes is something you don't see very often.
Right. A little bit, and kind of scary because, as you said, we are aware of what people think and what they feel. And softball families are very proactive. They don't sit and just allow things. They're going to make decisions. So yeah, it could affect your income. So we got in here, started playing around, started building things, and I'm going to play this clip, and I know that you know what it is. But
I knew this was
I'm going to take you back to this day, and then you can edit in or whatever we need to do for this. But let me just show you this.
The range? I want to revolutionize the pitching industry. I want to change the way that people look at pitching. I want to change the way that pitchers look at the game.
I want to revolutionize the pitching industry. I want to change the way that people look at the game.
Yep.
How do you think we're doing?
I would say we've done a pretty good job so far.
So far, so good.
More room to continue on.
And revolutionizing, that's a great word. And it just came right out of you. So what needed to be revolutionized or what we're looking for? We don't do things to be different. Just do things differently.
Well, first of all, I think that it seems like there's okay. As a utility player, I had so much fun on the field, like playing defense. Defense is my thing. Like, I love defense. I have so much fun on defense. Ton of fun in the outfield. Fun practicing taking reps in the infield. Pitchers never really look like they're having fun when they're practicing. I mean, every other position, like you have like camps and clinics and defensive whatever, and everybody else is out there having a good time, and the pitchers are like, they look miserable throwing their bullpens.
We call them they became the third part of the equation instead of the first part of the equation, right?
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I think that is one part of it, is creating an environment where pitchers can have fun training. And also the rings, for one, I would say is a big thing, because I can't tell you the pushback that I got from so many pitchers when I first had them, like throwing into the rings and people talking.
But understandable, because it's changed.
Things.
It's changed.
It's changed. And so I think even the fact that now you see a lot of people throwing into the rings, and not even just ours, but just targets in general, the sales have been incredible and all the people, it's becoming more of the norm, that where you don't have to have a catcher. That alone, I think we've started to revolutionize the change in that way, because that is something that people looked at kind of like, what's that? You don't have a catcher? Like, even pitchers that would come in for range class, their first class would want to warm up to their dads or to a catcher, and it's like
traditional. And that's you hear me say this all the time. That's an important part of the experience, playing catch with your daughter, right? That's especially, so we're not looking to take that away, not by any means, but we knew it could be better. Like, we knew that things could be, like you say, maybe a little more rounded out as far as their experience goes. And I think the other thing that I saw you really surprised me, you dove into social media storytelling. That's the way I look at it. And that's really been the story of the range. I mean, people wouldn't know about what we're doing. So, my start was, and I've always believed in this, create a product, create results that people notice. And that's been my marketing. So, hey, who do you go to? That little guy in the backyard, and boom. You're putting a story out. And one thing that how not only I am, but we both are, we believe in humility. So it's not about how good we are, what we're doing, or this or that, because the way that you tell a story can turn people off very, very fast. And people get turned off very, very fast. They're almost looking for it, right? So your storytelling, did you know you were going to enjoy it that much? Because editing itself, just putting clips together, I'm very appreciative, and I think it's remarkable what you've done in telling a story.
Thank you. I do have a creative side. I didn't really realize that the social media would kind of fill that for me. Like, it's fun to get creative with social media. It is a lot of work. I get overwhelmed sometimes, but once I get on a roll, I really, really enjoy it.
So you have to be able to step away too.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things is when I do step away for a couple days, or even like give myself a week, like go away on a trip or something like that. It's kind of hard for me to get back into it. Once I get back into it, like I said, like it just goes, the momentum goes, and I start getting really into it, and it's fun. But
so what perspective do you take when you're telling a story of the players and kind of the things that are going on? Is it a perspective? Is it an experience? You just kind of take what we're working with and throw it out there?
No, I try to give people something that's useful. I read a social media book called 1 Million Followers. I've referred that book to like 100 different people.
Pretty helpful.
It's extremely helpful, not just with algorithms and things like that, but very much about the kind of content that people are looking for. And I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but I want to say it was like a 70-30 or 80-20 in terms of content. Like, give people something of use and of interest that's for them. And then the other 20% is something that's more for you, whether that's advertising or asking people to engage in a post or share things or whatever it is. But make sure that you're giving people things that are going to help them. That's really what I try to do with most of our posts and things like that are classroom clips, is things that I feel like what we do in the classroom and the information and perspective we give people is not information or perspective that most people can get anywhere else. There's a select few in this industry that I feel like have certain knowledge, perspective, education, those kinds of things, years of experience, that have the ability to provide people with a lot of the information and things, the way that we break down the game strategy wise, stuff like that. But for the most part, I don't think that's always available to everybody. So like, I want to give that to people. I want to give people the opportunity, especially if they can't be inside the classroom, even if it's a 30-second clip, something that may be useful for them that week, that weekend, whatever.
And go back into the concept of storytelling, right? So sometimes I see it as like, we might be in our backyard and we notice our neighbors throwing a birthday party, what they're used to, traditionally what they're used to, but we look over at their guests, kind of looking over at the picture, they're not having the fun they should. Mm-hmm. And so we're not saying your party is bad, you shouldn't do it this way. We just throw a party next door, and then they're looking over the fence. And then if you treat them kindly and with respect, they feel welcome. A lot of times they're hesitant, just like joining the range, right? Or anything else that's new, because change is difficult for a lot of people. And then they realize that it is welcome, that we're not competing against them. There's the great thing about softball is there's a place to compete. It's on the field, right? Sometimes, so keeping that in perspective, I think, is important. But getting someone to understand, hey, so I know it sounds funny, but I have fun answering the question, well, what's the secret of what you guys do? Well, for me personally, I always start with the Mexican backyard, meaning it was a gathering place. We had fun. It was a conscious thing that we did, but people really respond to that. And to go back to the beginning of our conversation, that fun is not a guarantee all the way through for these kids. So it's almost like if we can help build the reservoir, right? Like the roots that are of good and great energy and things that you have storage of something that's going to get you through the tough stuff, then you don't feel depleted, mm-hmm. right? You don't feel like you're just run down. You're just dealing with the tough stuff of softball. So pretty happy with the environment so far, because we do two things. We go classroom, which is we can go 30 minutes, 45 minutes. These kids are in class all, I think at this time. I think at this too, they're in class all day. But we do class, and then we throw them in the back of the bullpens back here, and then they get their physical work in. So far, that format seems pretty efficient.
I think it is. I mean, I guess it's for the girls to let us know. I think we get really good feedback. I think it's efficient. I think that I especially like that we do the 90 minutes. The 30-minute model of the one-on-one lessons with me it felt so rushed all the time. Like, you want to have conversations. You don't want them to feel rushed, I think also when you have that time and you have the classroom, you have the physical work, it creates a balance. Like, there's just different components that are all like balanced out within the classroom. It's not any necessarily one thing.
Right.
And I think that is a big part too of like, creating a good environment and a positive environment for the girls, because I'm really big on balance in life. When you have balance in your life, you can deal with the tough stuff because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. On the other side of that, there's also going to be something to look forward to, something good, whatever. So when you're creating a good environment and a positive environment for the pitchers to come here and really enjoy themselves, it's, or give them perspective to, not take on so much angst sometimes, it's like that balance is going to help them through the tough stuff because they know it's not all tough. It's like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. They can come here and offset some of that stress and have a safe place and take a deep breath and like kind of remove themselves from that stress for a little while. And then, they get back to the grind. But you use the example of like a, refueling type station. I really think that that's a big part of what we do.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, even if they don't know it, or they think they're fine where they're at, and it's like, hey, just taste this, like try this, and all of a sudden, if we weren't getting feedback, right? So for me, I'm a response person. So if we're not getting feedback, and I think we are constantly adjusting as we navigate this to create different experiences. We're in a little bit of a transition right now as well. And again, with that comes a little bit of change, sometimes fear of this or that, a certain response, but that's normal, right? The pushback to the rings, the pushback that we get in the industry sometimes, unfortunately. But we're doing what works for us. We're doing what we feel is a piece of the puzzle. I'm not a biomechanical pitching coach. I understand biomechanics. I have a degree in it, but not pitching. Like that's not where my forte is. So I don't teach that. I'm not teaching those things. We have in this industry, I think, a little bit of everything. People that are amazing in what they do in their strengths, right? And if you think about it, it's almost like the different grades to someone going through school. These players are going to be a collection of all of their lessons. In fact, we recommend and know that all of our players and pitchers in our class, they all take pitching lessons. They're learning how to throw the pitches somewhere else, right? And so I think that's important because something else that I see you making an attempt to do, and it's almost like we need to use other industries as examples because the tradition of softball is division, right? Competitiveness off the field, bad-mouthing people, this or that. And you've done a really, really good job of acknowledging other instructors, other women instructors, and really trying to create some unity there. And that's not easy because we're so competitive and softball is a hypersensitive. And it's interpretation, right? So anybody can make a point in trying to make that point, and then somebody takes it a certain way. We could take an edge, and I think you had me do a couple classes this week where we call it getting real a little bit. And, that's interpretation, right? There's what I mean, but that's purposely, how are you going to take this? I just said that to you. Now decide how you're going to take that because you could take that really badly, and it's not going to come off so well. So I really like that we found a space that for me works in the sense that if it's your first day of playing softball, like Gia, or you've been playing, you're 75 years and older league, like you can enjoy the game no matter where you're at. You can compete. You're constantly learning. Take what you have learned up to this point, but compete today, right now, because that is recess. That is dodgeball, cornhole. Like it's the competition part of it. My opinion is if softball didn't need it or pitchers didn't need it, we wouldn't have touched it. There's plenty of things that we can do, right? I had never been part of an actual pitching class, but anybody that watches our sport on a weekend-to-weekend basis, anybody that's making lineups, trying to help kids execute a game plan to be successful knows exactly what we're talking about. It's not just take what you learn in a lesson and in a classroom and then walk out and just execute it. No, there's so many real factors that take place. So the fact that we fail, right, and that we try things that don't work as coaches, but I really like the unique perspective that we've taken. It's something that kind of works with me, and it's been fun to watch you slip into that space as well too, because over and over, we didn't do this to be different, right? But it is a different approach. But don't you think this is available for a lot of people? Like for so many well-intended coaches, people that, why do you coach? Well, my daughter needed a coach, right? Or I played, I want to coach. Okay, does it make you trained? And knowledge doesn't make you an effective teacher. So what can you do? And I feel like this is an example of something that anybody can take if they want to help someone because it's closer to that perspective that we take when we watch a Dodger game or a Yankee game. It's not only this aspect of analysis of what we're doing, because we could always do that, right? I could talk about how many degrees of flexion Ben has in his right elbow right now, but that's And in a certain world, physical therapists love to talk about that. But it's a balance of all those things. All of those go into, we all had to learn how to walk someday.
Mhm.
We all had to learn how to walk.
I mean, it's a reality of the sport that there is this strategic component. Like there's it's a reality of this sport that where the ball goes, like makes a difference on how the person's going to hit the bat, how the bat's going to hit the ball. It's just, these are all realities, and it's confusing to me that yes, how you do things, like the biomechanics, all that stuff really, really matters. But I mean, you just can't argue with the fact that strategy doesn't also matter, or training yourself to have consistency with where the ball goes. Also, that's unimportant. I mean, you can't argue that. Those are all just realities of the sport. So I think in the fact that those are realities of the sport at every level, why aren't more pitchers working on those things, really?
I think it's rounding things out, and I hopefully you see the effectiveness of the analogies. The race car analogy. There's the garage where you've got the hood up and you're working on the engine and you're making it stronger, and that absolutely is a big part of hitting, training, weightlifting, mechanics of pitching. All of that goes into it. My point to anyone that might be listening is this comes down to, hey, we've got 20 players between me and Holly are coaching one team. Any two of you are coaching another team. We've got 20 kids. You pick the first 10. We'll take the 10 that are remaining, and let's just play the game. So it's not no, let's just play the game. Like, bottom line is, this is the way that we play the game. Now add in every little thing. So whether we go from over the line as a 9-year-old to high level data and metrics and everything else, it's still a game. So that's kind of the beauty of our game, right? You can get to some very high level, and it's a beautiful age. I admire and respect what's happening with our game. But for myself, I get a little bit lost in it. So I'm not most functional inside the Hit Tracks. Elena from Hit Tracks is such a great person. She calls me, she checks on me, and I always feel bad when she asks me, how's it going? And I'm like, I really don't even know how to use it. Like, I basically just reduce it to like a video game and see how hard you can hit the ball, which the kids love it. Yeah. The kids love it. I mean, last night, so we had 3 kids in the cage last night, and I left them in alone. And their initial exit speeds off the Hit Tracks, like, okay, one was excelling, there was another one in the middle, and then there's one on the low end. So it wasn't enjoyable for everyone, because the one that didn't have the higher numbers were like, oh no, I'm not hitting it as hard. So I explained to them why I had them in there. I said, all I want you to do is hit the ball hard. But I'm going to leave you alone, because I know when I leave you guys alone, you're going to be competitive, because you're competitive. And with me, it's like instruction. So I walk out, I'm talking to their parents. And 7 minutes, I think it was, and they're yelling and they're excited. And I turn around, and one of them takes a full swing. They're slappers. Takes a full swing that I know she's never taken before. And I turn to her parents and go, did you see that swing? And as soon as I said swing, she yelled because she saw her exit number, right? So she's screaming, boom, boom, boom. So, all right, now I look at Coach Mike's dip. So I haven't really talked about this, but in this facility, we're on this half of it, and then we've got the New York Yankees, my analogy, right, of their longevity history, just ridiculous success on the field, all the players, it's an amazing model to be next to you, but boy, you better be secure with yourself, if you're next to it. And we enjoy it, we love it. So there's Mike, he walks back, and he's throwing another 25-pound weight on the sled for a 12-year-old to push. And here's our 3 kids acting like it's the first birthday party they've ever been to, right? And so I felt a little uneasy between who I know, as I call him, John Wayne, and I look over here, and I've got these 3 kids giddy because they hit the ball here. So I looked at him, I go, hey, I might or might not be speaking for Coach Mike, but I said, act like you've been here before. Like his 10-year-olds are looking at you guys 15 going, you guys are awful excited over hitting one ball hard. But it is that bad. Like, that is the beauty of our environment. And here's what I will say I love about Coach Mike. He didn't say, yeah, act like you've been there before. He looks at him and he goes, looks like you enjoy winning. And he smiled at him and he acknowledged that. And describe that part of the environment here, where most people couldn't function because so many people I get it, you're so competitive, right? You score keep, you you got to say something about what we are doing or whatever. And I get it, right? But just think about what you're saying about yourself when you can't support and acknowledge people, and instantly you got to try to shoot holes in it, which is great. Hey, shoot holes. Take your best shot at what we're doing. Because bottom line is, I said, we go on the field and we take care of it. But describe kind of the environment here with a contrast of the Batbusters and firecrackers and range and neon lights on one side. And
I feel like, yeah, well, here's the thing about shooting holes in what people do. And I'm glad that I think that we provide some really good social media content for people, because they create reels where they're just trying to shoot holes in what we do. And here's the thing is, like, I believe in what we do. Like, I know it works. So it doesn't,
we're not trying to prove something.
I'm not trying to prove anything. It's like, when you're confident in something, you don't have to shoot holes in what other people are doing. You just let it unfold. It's like scoreboard. You see it at the end of the day. You know that it works. And I think that that's the thing in here with Batbusters and us. And yeah, we're very different, but we are who we are. And I think that, obviously what they do works. They've gotten, and it's not just winning. It's like, you look at the kids that they get to the schools that they go to, Oklahoma being, one that you can use as an example. It's not just getting the kids to those schools. They go and they produce since like the time they step on the field as freshmen. I mean, you've got some of the best kids in the sport that go and they're able to deliver the goods their very first season. So I think that that's really what speaks to what they're doing and why it works, and it works for them. And then what we're doing works for us too. Is like, we create different kinds of athletes, I think, with the Firecrackers, but also a lot of very well-rounded athletes. It works. What we're doing works for us. We're confident in it. They're confident in what they're doing. And when you have people that are secure in who they are and what they're doing and believe in what they're doing, it's cohesive. We're different. But, yeah.
What's the level of respect that you see between our programs and Mike and myself and Katie, you, and even Marty Tyson? Like, high level of respect?
Very high level of respect.
Based on respect. If Marty and I, so go back to that, the most intense moment, national championship situations, national championship games, win or lose, if that person on the other side isn't respectful, we're not doing this with them. Because I don't react, but I don't forget. I absolutely don't forget. Just because I don't respond doesn't mean I don't know and that I'm going to forget. And so I will never forget the first national championship game against them slipped away, and they walked away, and Mike acknowledged me at the end, like, that was a great game. And then the next year it went our way, and he gave me the same look. Hey, nice job. He didn't have that bitter and angry over losing ahead of respect. He respected me ahead of the he's a very competitive guy. And that's what's most important to me. And that's something that I would, again, I'll just say, if you choose to prioritize respect and relationships, you're going to see that no matter what you do know and what you are teaching, I challenge you to see that it doesn't go deeper when you start respecting others. For whatever reason, we stepped into it. It's a tradition in softball. So the analogy of why can't we just all be people that cook, and some people are chefs, some people just cook in a backyard barbecue, but we're all just doing what we do, and acknowledge that, hey, look at that. Does it need to be one way better than the other, one approach better than the other? And we want people to understand, we're not saying location's the only thing. It's the thing that's missing from the competitive aspect. For myself, 30 plus years of watching these pitchers weekend after weekend, and not just ours or what we try to facilitate with their growth, our competitors, and pretty much any game that I walk by. I mean, this game has, it's evolved offensively. Okay. Yeah. I could say it as it left the pitchers behind, but it evolved offensively. Mm-hmm. So there are certain common denominators that just go into that. That's all it is. I really feel like for anybody that watches your stories on there, they have to be saying to themselves, oh, I know that. We know that. We could do that. Well, that's exactly what we want. We're not saying we're the only ones. We're asking you maybe to take a different perspective towards game time when your pitchers are performing, or the experience of how they practice. Because, all right, accurate or not, I've said this the last couple of weeks, how many softball players have batting cages in their backyard and they don't want to go in there? Right. Saddest thing in the world, right? And why? Because the batting cage offends them? Wasn't the cage. Wasn't the bullpen. Yeah. So we prioritize fun. and we've kind of created a perspective where it's not always as much as the pitches that they've learned because they've done a good job of that, the origin of the pitch. We talk about the destination of the pitch. So these little rings that weren't so, again, it was different, and I get it,
No, you can call it what it is.
but
They were not well liked by a lot of people, and it was like pulling. Well, I was coaching high school at the time, so to introduce within Firecrackers, it was like they were, more people. The pitchers were more open, but I feel like I was coaching high school, and they were detested. I would say by some of the pitchers.
Yeah.
But,
and this isn't thing that because again of the respect, right? So we keep these statements very, very short and far and few between. Yeah, but aren't you interested in how we've been able to be successful against you for year after year? And it doesn't mean we win every game, but the success proven with just accuracy and targets to round out speed, movement, spins. We're just rounding out the components of softball. But this affects competition more than anything else. In the immediate today, right now, you can apply this through perspective.
yeah, and I'm going to add to that typically people don't like doing things they're not good at. So when you introduce something like the rings to a pitcher that's never really worked on accuracy, and all of a sudden she's not hitting it as many times as she wants to, she's not getting 3 of 5, she's not even getting any out of 5. Those are typically the ones that are going to say, "This sucks. I don't like doing this." It's like it's challenging, but when you see value in it and you get better and better at it, you start liking it. When you're better at it.
When you start to see the results.
Yeah, typically, of course it's not fun if it's basically exposing one of your weaknesses. And if one of your weaknesses is your ability to locate the ball, it's not very fun to see that and get that kind of feedback it gives you instant feedback. So
this could get you out of the darkness. Like this allows you to get out of the darkness of, listen, if you've been successful doing what you're doing, keep doing it. You don't even need to open up our Instagram. But if you could be better, listen to the story, because it's something that can affect your game like immediately. And we've talked about this. Perspective is one of the biggest things that holds people back, and it's a traditional perspective, right? It's not, a lot of times it's not something that they choose. So I'll go to hitting. I believe, just my opinion, there's an imbalance. Ask how many players what they do wrong with their swing, and what percentage of those players are going to tell you what they do wrong with their swings. What percentage of those players can tell you what pitches they swung at the last game or the last 5 games? Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden the percentage drops to 10%, and 90% of hitters don't know what they're swinging at, but they all know what they're doing wrong. People, we create a loving shoe that if it fits you, just think about it. Like, this isn't for us. We don't need anything from the game. Okay, this is a business. Your perception. Rico's a money grabber. This is just that. Oh, this is just a play on that. I get it. We get it. Honestly, from our heart, if you can't hear this, if you can't see this in our eyes when we're speaking about it, we're investing in your success, and we don't feel bad for being able to take care of our families as a result of that. But that's not the number one for us. Your results, the ability to affect your game. I would have got out of coaching in 1995 if what I knew wasn't helping people, because that's futile, and that would be really frustrating to not see any results.
That's why I am the type of person that you have to prove something to me. I'm not going to just buy in, or I didn't drink the Firecracker Kool-Aid when I came over to Firecracker.
Our whole relationship, right?
I'm like, all right, let's see what this guy's about. Because I heard that they don't even hit wiffle balls before games. This guy's, something's wrong with him, I think.
We go to the park across the street and we practice for 2 hours and then show up like we don't.
They visualize. Yeah. And actually, we do. But I'm like, all these things, what's this about? I'm not instantly going to be like, join the cult or anything. And
culture.
And so, whatever you want to call it. And so.
Add the URE.
So it worked. Like, we were doing the rings, and, when I was brought in to work with the pitchers, and the rings were already being used for the Firecracker pitchers. And a lot of the concepts, the strategy, all those kinds of things, I saw it working. I saw it work. That is why, like, I bought into it, is like I saw it work. And then you take also my education with sports psychology and understanding that from a academic standpoint, it makes sense. Like, it does make sense with simplifying the mindset, focusing more on the destination, not overthinking your mechanics in a game situation, game setting. All those kinds of things are textbook sports psychology concepts that I know to be true through not just playing, but also, like I said, I had to write a lot of 30-page papers in grad school within sports psychology. It is a well-versed subject, and I know that this fits into that context as well as a lot of things that we're doing. So you see it work. It fits into the context of everything I learned in grad school. And, add that in with playing experience, coaching experience, all that kind of stuff.
That always makes me feel good, because then it's validated by something that's real. Because, I introduced myself as Crazy Coach Tony. These things sound crazy, but in the end, they work. And that's the number one thing that we really want for people. So it's been a lot of fun. And we are a long way away from perfecting our craft. We are constantly tweaking. We're constantly doing things. How can we be more efficient? How can we be more consistent with the information that our students are applying, taking away? How many of our range students, be able to sit in another chair outside of ourselves? Okay, so do all of your pitchers love the concept so much that they're applying it 100%? There's a certain amount of our pitchers that understand it, they're proficient, but we haven't found quite the pocket where they're efficient and they're actually, but let's take the responsibility on ourselves. So you and I are talking about different things to facilitate that. And so, and a lot of it is capturing, right? So our bullpens, we have them capture. It's a square on a piece of paper, but they're capturing, they're writing their pitches down. So they know the last 25 pitches that they threw, they know exactly where they went. Again, we use a lot of those analogies. So I'm really, I've really enjoyed it. There's not a lot to reinvent in the game, but somehow I think we keep finding ways to do it. It keeps it fresh, right? And there's a certain amount of consistency that we have, but then it doesn't seem like every corner is a new corner. We don't know what's going to be around it.
I think one of the most exciting things to me also is like when we have, maybe there's some rangers that haven't come for a while and they come back, is like feeling like we have something new to give them too, because it is still evolving. And even we just restructured the classes, giving the big girls their own class, giving the little girls their own class, and being able to, provide them with some more age specific, just attention. But even that, that was a big change, but just as we evolve and we don't stay stuck in one place, I think it makes it exciting every time we have somebody that hasn't been in for a while. I'm like, oh, we got something new.
And that's part of it too. And don't you think they appreciate the fact that we don't go, where you been? How come you haven't been coming here? Like, it's an open door. We don't take things personally, right? Really kind of check yourself. Just don't take things personally.
Well, yeah, if you treat people like that, they're never going to come back. Ultimately we want people to be here and to enjoy it. So if we make it an environment where they feel awkward, or they feel awkward because I think one of the biggest things is if someone's on a firecracker team and they come here and then all of a sudden they're not, and they're on a different, I don't want them to feel like they can't come here. This is not a firecracker specific class. In fact, I think we have more Baptisters and other organizations than firecrackers, but that I don't want, for whatever reason it is, because they switch teams, because they switch organizations, because they haven't come in a while, 2 years, whatever, like it's always an open door and, a welcoming environment. I want it to always be that nobody feels like we're going to question them for.
Isn't it the truth
coming.
that or like at least for myself, I might not even notice what jersey they're wearing, or I have no idea of the ratio of where they're playing. I'll be honest with you, every time now and then I'll look at a shirt and go, oh, I didn't know you're playing for them. Or for us, excuse me, just sent a note out to a dad of one of our kids that have been in here and realized she was in our program. I said, I didn't even know that. So it's really not, it's not you need to do this to be accepted here. I like that not only do our players know that, but even like Coach Mike, right? There's nothing shisty going on where his top pitchers are coming over and like, hey, do you want to be a firecracker? Like, there's none of that slimy, shisty stuff, because we put ourselves in their position. And that's something that it doesn't facilitate growth in the industry. We're all one industry. if we divide within the industry, how do we look from outside the industry? That's not a real good industry. So
I think also it's like I really value and want to make sure that everything's on the up and up with the range, because I don't want to put anybody off that they don't want their kids to go. Like, I want to make the sport better, like I said, to revolutionize the sport. And in order for that to happen, it needs to be accessible to everybody. And if we start putting kids or coaches or whatever in uncomfortable situations where we're now trying to be shisty and steal people's pictures because they come to the range, well, then they're not going to send their pictures to us anymore. And that, not only is that not good for us or not good for business, but ultimately the most important thing is I don't want that for the sport. Like, I want to be able to help everybody, and I don't ever want it to be a situation where people are weary of sending their pictures over to us like that. So
the
integrity.
the opportunity to grow and the evolution that can take place in here. You mentioned earlier, well, they won't come back if you don't train. Yes, they will, because softball's full of coaches, instructors, people that get mad at you. You left their team, you went somewhere else. How dare you? And these kids always come back, because if they did it, they would have nowhere to go. So we're hoping that. I want to use the word inspire, to just take a look at your perspective, be more open-minded. Do you think the kids really enjoy being in the middle of like a competitive mind of a parent or a coach, where you can't talk about this or they can't talk about that, because you're like, oh, like, just be open-minded. Let the kids be free. Right now, the players in this game are too close to the third party in the equation. On a day-to-day basis. In concept, yes, everyone fights for the kids, but on a daily basis, people allow things, lack of boundaries, lack of management, that term untrained mindset, like the way that came up this week.
That was funny.
And what about that? What about the fact that we actually had a dad come up in the class, 25-year police officer, and what did he share with the class?
He shared that his daughter had asked him to stop walking around while she was pitching. I guess he would pace when she was pitching. That was his own way of quelling his personal anxiety. But it made her feel like he didn't believe in her, and she told him that it was an untrained mindset.
And think about that, right? Because again, now I'm the ruler of my kingdom, right? So I'm the dad or someone in the household. I do what I want to do, and then for whatever reason we act any way that we want inside softball. And now that shoe fits me. I don't like that. I don't like that someone's calling me out on what I do when I got to watch my daughter, because this is how I cope with it. But think about how you look, bro. Think about how you're going to look in the College World Series. Think about how you look. And no, you're not doing it to affect her, but in reality, you're actually affecting her. Every single kid knows the behavior of their parent in the stands. Every single kid. You can ask any kid, what does your parent do when you're playing? Where are they? How do they act? What do they say? And no matter what your parent says they do, it's like when, for the longest time, I lovingly tell a dad, bro, you need to stop with the car ride home. When I would get I'm a lot better now. I said, you're a lot better when your wife and your daughter tell me you're better, but you're not better when you tell me you're better. That's just I'm working on it. That means you have more room to keep doing it. Right? Draw that hard line boundary of perspective to give the experience back to the kids. One thing that we do with the range, we make it competitive, right? We end the class with a competition. I would encourage parents that, I think two big things is, number one, Hey, compete with your kids. Let me see if I can hit that ring before you can, or hit it with a bat. I've got to show you something, by the way, that we did with the rings with the hitting last night. But compete again. The kids love to compete against you, and they love to see you fail, to see you human, because it's so easy to sit here and critique them when you don't have to do what they do. They love to see you fail and love to see you try to do what they do, and then humble yourself. Then the other thing I would say is, we talk about this in class, rather than just repeat what you hear coaches and instructors say, make your stories relatable. I mean, this week was, I think, a real powerful week in class, in the fact that there were a lot of relatable stories of pressure in life and uncertainty, and it was interesting to hear Keith, the police officer, say, I don't worry about anything that could happen in my job. When I have to be prepared, to take a life or lose mine or whatever, he's not worried about anything. But his daughter, absolute uncertainty. But if you think about it, we put every parent in softball in this unmanaged arena, and it's chaotic. So in the end, you better have guns loaded all the time because you don't know what's coming from what direction.
Mhm.
And I don't know how close I'll come in my lifetime, your lifetime, maybe Gia's lifetime, because she has part teacher in her as well too. But I really hope, Holly, that we can help create a little more balance to the environment that these kids are playing in. And so the balance of fun for us, but then still being able to step on the field and compete. And that's what I mean by take care of business, execute your game. Watching the evolution of kind of your home situation, your relationship with Gia, everything that's happening here, how everything rounds out. Something tells us like we know what's down the road, but then also we don't know what's around the next corner. We're just kind of living life that way. You and I both don't do well in boxes, I would say. It's it's pretty different, but I'm excited. I'm excited about everything that comes that's going to come next. So in front of you there, looking forward to, and by the time this comes out, these will have been released. So because we're a week or two away from where this will be released, but what's our newest, latest? So
Got multiples, but
there
these
you
are the
go. So these are the new ones, right? And so why? So obviously, something to the eye, color specific, but and like I say, Instagram is free. Watch the stories, listen, right? Because listen, you could use duct tape. I mean, this isn't a smart business move, but you don't need rings. Use color duct tape. But the rings are more fun.
Yeah, but these are way more fun,
Yeah,
and
way more fun.
they come on and off easily.
And what we're doing is we're going to create some systematic bullpens where right now if we said, hey, green's going to be pitches in the strike zone, pink's going to be pitches out of the strike zones, blue's going to be off speed, you can now start to create. And it was interesting last week when we did this, you could still have 8 rings up on the net, but you were seeing them in sets of 3, the green 3, the blue 3, and so it depended on what you want to work on. Make your work functionally specific. So functionality is
The ability to execute a task or a job, whatever that is.
yeah, and that is your job is to get outs, right?
Outs.
Bottom line is, do you get not what do you know? Do you get outs? Whatever goes into that, that's what we want for every single pitcher, right? We talk about to wrap this up, but I just popped in my mind. Go back to revolutionizing the sport. Well, I think that what you have done through storytelling is you've brought out some really good things in people. And I'm not going to say it's you or us, just the fact that we hear some amazing ex-players, commentators, Danielle Laurie, Amanda Scarborough, you see Kat Osterman,
Kat.
right? You have some pretty unique relationships and you've worked with some pretty cool people since we've been working inside the range. So pretty cool to hear that insight when they're calling games. And Amanda's doing some great, and Danielle both, they're doing reels now. We're breaking down at bats, right?
Love it.
Strategical at bats. Amazing.
Yeah, the sport means
Some of the best
more
in the
of
game.
that. Yeah, the sport. So social media, I think that's it's just we need more of that. It just helps give a different perspective to what it's a game. Like we're competing. It's strategy. That is what the sport is. So let's talk about it more.
You know what's awesome is when you listen to Danielle, Kat, or Amanda talk about pitching, they are by no means trying to tell you how good they were, right? They're sharing the game. And if you think about the stages they played on, the levels they pitched at, what they've done, the batters they've faced, and a lot of times the common denominator from just strategical component. It's not the only component. You have to have an idea how to move, but it has just been amazing. So
I think, God, I wish I could remember the quote word for word, but something about like people at the top are working together. It's kind of more the people that are not at the top that tend to be not working together, collaborating, not supportive, all those kinds of things. I don't know how exactly what it was. I'm trying to put it in a nice diplomatic way, but to your point of them not those names, those players not having to let everybody know how good they were, and also have been fantastic to work with, all 3 of them. They're confident. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need to try to put down anybody else or anything like that, because it seems as though, like from what I know of them, like they just own who they are. Their work speaks for itself. The things that they've accomplished speak for itself, and they're great to work with. They've been collaborative and supportive of the range, and I think that again just goes back to people being comfortable and confident and secure in what they're doing and who they are, and then they really have the ability. People like that have the ability to support others in what they're doing.
Every now and then, it's not a flex. Every now and then they reveal something so that you know where they come from. There's a red background behind me. Just our choice. There's not 5 trophies behind us. Now, Coach Mike talks about, since he's got, Mike Stith, he's got like rooms full of trophies just piled up, from his championships and stuff. So he talks about making a display in Batbuster lobby over there. And I said, do it, Mike. Like, he makes everything himself. Can you imagine what that's going to look like when he builds that? So I'm thinking,
Pretty cool.
so I talked to Kenny here and I was like, well, people are going to look over here and they're going to wonder, have you guys ever won anything? Well, we haven't won like what they win. I think we have like one of everything, or our collection would be really, really cool. It'd be more of a variety of championships. And, he just has national championships stacked up. But the fact that we went toe to toe, how would you describe the working relationship between Stith, Tyson, and Rico? Is it real? Is it a
Real,
front?
yeah.
Is it front?
heck
Are we
no.
faking it and we have trouble being in a room
No,
together?
very
Like, what have
real.
you seen?
Yeah, real. Fantastic to watch. It's very entertaining. And like
Respectful?
just super respectful, but really genuine. I think it's like all 3 of you are very different, and seem to be able to be very comfortable just being who you are all together, and it totally works. Like I think it's great.
When we're in that personal space at the dinner table in Colorado, and Marty pulls out his own tahine, and so he's like, he brings his own seasoning to wherever he goes. So I would just go on record saying,
I
Mike,
don't recall that. I have to say, I recall him calling you out on ordering something from the kids' menu.
so there's the grilled cheese. Yeah, he did call me out on that. Getting to know Donna, like all of these things. Who would have thought and we all met each other in the heat of the battle in the biggest of biggest games, and here we are just trying to make the softball world a little better with kind of the things that we're working on. So, but I asked you that again because perception is not reality. It's perception unique to each person. But the real story with that is, boy, do I love working with these guys. Like, they are amazing. I admire them. They're successful in their own way. And you want to talk about getting it done at the highest level? Beat that. Beat what Marty's done. Beat what Mike's done. You're not going to talk about anything higher than that. But they're people too. So.
And I think what also is like, I always go back to this, but when you talk about, getting it done at the highest level, it's not just the winning of, trophies at the 18 and under level. And it's not about getting the kids to schools. I keep coming back to, what do they do when they get there? And these coaches are all developing the best players in the sport at the highest level. Were developed by most of these guys, or not just guys, but it's just that really to me is like what they do when they get to school. It's not just about saying like, oh, I got this kid to go to X school. It's like, well, what are they doing when they get there? They're just developing players that are contributing to the sport at the highest level. And that to me is what I have so much respect for.
When someone can accuse you of shaving bats and you're not, just because your kids are that dang good, and that's a pretty high compliment.
They've been pushing sleds since they were 10.
Yeah, that's not in the bat; it's in the muscles of the kids. So she's been over here since she was 12. So, all right, we're gonna wrap it up. We can hop in anytime and do more of these, but Holly, thank you. Like, this has been a great ride.
Thank you.
I love working with you as a coach. I love working with you as a partner in the range, and I just love you in general. And I'm really, really appreciative of it. So, till next time. Peace. Good job on the standing O. That's a standing O, by the way. Standing O. Do people have those? Sorry, that's off camera. All right. I'm going to say hour 20.
Hour 29.
All right. That's good. But it just flowed, so that was good.
Thank you, Ben.
No problem.
All right. Good on your
I
end?
love being the fly on the wall.
How do you think that was?
So an hour and a half goes by fast.